Hello students, welcome to Reno's Englishpedia. Today we are going to do the topic active and passive voice. Voice is a distinction of form or a system of inflections of a verb to indicate the relation of the subject of the verb to the action which the verb expresses. It simply means that the different forms of the verb are used to show the relationship of the subject of the verb to the action which the verb is supposed to be doing. Voice is of two kinds, active voice and the passive voice. A sentence is said to be in the active voice when the subject is the doer of the action and when the subject is more important than the action. For example, the friends gave gifts to each other. Over here, the friends is most important because it shows that it is the friends who are doing the action, who are giving the gifts to each other. On the other hand, a sentence is said to be in the passive voice when the subject is the receiver of the action and when the action is more important than the doer of the action. For example, gifts were given by the friends to each other. Over here, the fact is that it is the gifts which are being given, the action is being done on the gifts, and therefore it is in the passive voice. Now, before we actually study active and passive voice and its rule, it is very important to distinguish between the transitive verb and the intransitive verb. Let us now compare the following sentences. The first sentence is, the birds are flying in the sky, and the second sentence is, the boys are flying a kite. In both the sentences, the verb used is are flying. Is this verb transitive or is it intransitive? In order to determine this, let us ask a few questions. The most important question is what? The birds are flying what? Do we get an answer? If not, then this is the wrong question. The right question is the birds are flying where? And the answer is in the sky, which is a place. Since this statement doesn't answer to the question what, therefore there is no object over here and thus we can say that this verb is intransitive. Now let us see the other sentence. The sentence is, the boys are flying a kite. Again, let us ask the question what? The boys are flying what? And we get the answer, a kite, which is an object. Since we have an object in the sentence, therefore the verb is a transitive verb. Let us study another sentence. I called Rajiv at 2 o'clock. The verb over here is called. Now let us ask the question whom? Called whom? And we get an answer Rajiv. Again we have an object in the sentence and therefore the verb is transitive. In order that a verb be considered as transitive, it must answer the questions what or whom. That means that it must have an object. With this study, we can conclude that a verb can be both transitive or intransitive. It depends on how it is used. Therefore, the right question to ask is whether the verb has been used transitively or intransitively. Now, armed with this knowledge, let's go further. The most important rule to remember in voice is that a sentence in the active voice can be converted into the passive voice only if the verb has been used transitively. Let us now study the rules for conversion of active voice to passive voice. The first rule is that the subject becomes the object and the object becomes the subject. The second rule is that the third form of the verb, that is V3, is used. Again, we have to remember that the verb form must be transitive. The tense to be used is shown by the helping verb to be and preposition by is used. Now let us study these rules in detail. For the first rule, that the subject becomes the object and the object becomes the subject, let us see the following examples. The sun gives warmth. This is a sentence in the active voice where the subject is the sun and the object is warmth. When we change it into the passive voice, the subject and the object will interchange. That is, the sentence will become warmth is given by the sun. Now, in this sentence, the subject is warmth and the object is the sun. In case the subject is a pronoun, then I in the active voice becomes me in the passive voice. Similarly, we becomes us, you remains you, he becomes him, she becomes her, it remains it, and they becomes them. For example, Rahul and I bought a book will convert into a book was bought by Rahul and me. Similarly, we seek your blessings will become your blessings are sought by us. And finally, they plucked flowers from the garden will convert into flowers were plucked from the garden by them. After studying the first rule, let us now consider the statements given. The first statement is that the cow is eating the grass. If we simply follow the first rule, then the sentence becomes the grass is eating the cow. Is this a correct sentence? Does it have any meaning? Obviously, the answer is no. Therefore, the right answer is the grass is being eaten by the cow. In order to make the sentence meaningful, we need to follow certain other rules. The next important rule that we must follow is that the third form of the verb is to be used. In the sentence, the sun gives warmth, which is in active voice. The verb is gives, which is the first form of the verb plus s. When we change it into the passive voice, the sentence becomes warmth is given by the sun. In this sentence, the verb is given, which is the third form of the verb give. The next rule is that preposition by is to be used. In the sentence, the sun gives warmth, which is in active voice, there is no requirement of the preposition by. However, in this sentence, warmth is given by the sun, which is in the passive voice, the preposition by must be used. In some cases, the preposition by may be replaced by some other preposition. For example, these facts are not known to me, or they are satisfied with your work. But by and large, the preposition by is generally used. One important point to remember is that when active verbs are followed by prepositions, they retain them when they are expressed in the passive form. For example, Mr. Goyal looks after all these children. In this sentence, the active verb looks is immediately followed by the preposition after, and this preposition will be expressed in the passive form also. For example, all these children are looked after by Mr. Goyal. Similarly, in this sentence, they deal in furniture items. Again, the verb deal is followed by the preposition in, which is going to be retained in its passive form, and the sentence will become furniture items are dealt in by them. Having studied all the important rules in the voice, it is very important to know how will we express the tense. If only third form of the verb is to be used, then how will we know which tense are we using? Please remember, the tense in both the active and the passive voice remains the same. People wrongly assume that since we call it the passive voice, the tense will automatically be the past tense. But this is a completely wrong surmise, and we must remember that whatever tense is there in the active voice, the same tense will also be used in the passive voice. This tense in the passive voice is conveyed through the different forms of the helping verb to be. Let us now study each tense one by one. The first tense that we are going to study is the simple or the indefinite tense. When we are talking about the simple present tense in the active voice, we use the first form of the verb. For examples, ghazals soothe my heart. Soothe is the first form of the verb. Likewise, in the passive voice, the first form of the verb to be is, am and are. Over here, since my heart is singular, we use the singular verb is, and the sentence in the passive voice becomes, my heart is soothed by ghazals. While talking about the simple past tense in the active voice, we use the second form of the verb here, and the example is, the baby banged the spoon. Over here, the main verb is bang, and the passive form of this sentence will become, the spoon was banged by the baby. Just like the present tense, the second form of the verb to be is, was and were, and because the spoon is singular, we have used the singular verb was. In the same manner, in the simple future tense, we use the form will plus root form of the verb. And an example of this sentence is, she will help the old lady to cross the road. Similarly, this sentence in the passive voice will become, the old lady will be helped by her to cross the road. Over here, we add the root form of the verb to be, that is be, and the form will become will plus be plus third form of the verb. Now let us study the sentences in the continuous tense. In the present continuous tense, we use the form is MR plus first form of the verb plus ing, and an example is, she is defending his conduct. The same sentence in the passive voice will become, his conduct is being defended by her. Over here, along with is, am and are, we use the ing form of the root verb to be along with third form of the verb to express the present continuous tense in the passive form. The past continuous tense in the active voice is expressed using the helping verbs was, were along with first form of the verb and ing. For example, he was irritating me. This sentence in the passive voice becomes, I was being irritated by him. The past continuous tense in the passive voice is expressed by the helping verbs was, were along with being and the third form of the verb. Similarly, the future continuous tense in the active voice is shown by the helping verbs will plus be plus first form of the verb and ing. For example, the History Society will be giving a facelift to many monuments. However, in the passive voice, we never ever have the continuous form. It cannot be expressed. We will now study the perfect tenses. In the present perfect tense in the active voice, helping verbs has, have are used along with third form of the verb. For example, she has finalized the cast. The passive voice of this sentence will become, the cast has been finalized by her. Over here, to express the passive voice, along with the helping verbs has and have, we use the third form of the helping verb to be, that is, been. When talking about the past perfect tense in the active voice, we use the helping verb had with third form of the verb. For example, I had received all the information by 6 p.m. The passive voice of this sentence will become, all the information had been received by me by 6 p.m. Just like the present perfect tense, over here also we use had plus been plus third form of the verb. The future perfect tense in the active voice is expressed with the helping verbs will plus have along with third form of the verb. For example, we will have serviced your car by tomorrow. Similarly, in the passive voice, the sentence becomes your car will have been serviced by tomorrow. In this sentence, the phrase by us can be skipped and the helping verbs will plus have plus been plus the third form of the verb has been used to express the passive voice. Just like the future continuous tense, the present, past, future, perfect continuous tenses too cannot be changed into the passive form. When talking about sentences which have the modal auxiliaries, in those sentences, the form of the passive voice will become subject plus the auxiliary verb plus the helping verb to be along with the third form of the verb. If, for example, in the active voice we have the sentence, we should respect every living creature on this earth, then in the passive voice the sentence will become every living creature on this earth should be respected. The phrase by us is not required. In a similar manner, in the sentences in the active voice, we ought to keep our neighborhood clean. The sentence in the passive voice will become the neighborhood ought to be kept clean. The same rule is also to be followed when we ask a question. For example, can we postpone this get together? And its passive form will become can this get together be postponed? In some sentences, along with the modal auxiliaries, we also have the helping verb have with the third form of the verb. In such kind of modal auxiliary sentences, when converting the sentence into the passive voice, the form will become the subject plus the auxiliary verb plus the helping verbs have and been along with the third form of the verb. For example, they should not have violated the school norms. Its passive voice will become the school norms should not have been violated by them. Similarly, your behavior could have spoilt your reputation will become your reputation could have been spoilt by your behavior. In imperative sentences, such as those which express command or orders, advice or suggestion or request, in the active voice we have the structure, root form of the verb or do not for negative sentences. The passive voice of these sentences will become let plus the subject plus be plus third form of the verb or subject plus should plus be and the third form of the verb. In sentences beginning with let, in the active voice we have the form let plus the subject matter plus the root form of the verb. The passive voice of such sentences will be let plus be plus third form of the verb. For example, when expressing some command or order in the active voice, we may have a sentence, bring a glass of water. The passive voice of this sentence will be, let a glass of water be brought. Or another example is, in the active voice, leave at once. Its passive voice will become, you are ordered to leave at once. When dealing with sentences which give advice or suggestion, we should use the modal should. An example of it in the active voice is, do not procrastinate your work. The passive voice of this sentence will become, work should not be procrastinated, or you are advised not to procrastinate your work. In sentences where we request someone in the passive voice, we should use the modal may. For example, in the active voice, if we have the sentence, please give me more time to finish my work, its passive voice will become, I may please be given more time to finish my work, or some more time may please be given to me to finish the work. When we are talking about sentences which begin with let, The active voice of such sentences, let Aradhya attend the dance, and its passive voice will become, let the dance be attended by Aradhya. Having discussed all the rules of conversion from active to passive voice, it is now time to talk about the ditransitive verbs. The ditransitive verbs have two objects. Such sentences have two passive forms. For example, in the active voice, if we have the sentence, students give a lot of respect to teachers. There are two objects, a lot of respect and teachers. In such sentences, we can have either the passive voice, teachers are given a lot of respect by students, where teachers has been turned into the subject, or we may have the passive voice, a lot of respect is given to teachers by the students, where we are using the object a lot of respect. Finally, it is now time to discuss the situations when we should use the passive voice. The passive voice is used when we do not know who has done the action. For example, this shipment was damaged in transit. We do not know who damaged it. We just know that it was damaged. Similarly, it is also used when the action itself is more important than knowing who or what causes it. For example, the class 12th board results were declared on Monday. We do not want to know who declared it as long as they were declared. The passive voice is also used in writing the newspaper headlines. But in such cases, the helping verbs, that is the to be forms of the verb, are not to be used. For example, millions of people affected by COVID-19. We will never say that millions of people were affected. Were is not to be used in newspaper headlines. Similarly, passive voice is also used for procedures. For example, a cup of all-purpose flour is taken. With this, we come to the end of the topic voice. I hope that you not only enjoyed the video but are also now comfortable while converting sentences from the active voice to the passive voice. I hope that you will not only like but also share and subscribe to my channel Renu's Englishpedia. At the end, I would only like to say thank you, or expressing it in the passive voice, you are thanked by me. Thank you so much.